My mother gave birth to 3 daughters. From a young age, my paternal grandmother cursed me, calling me a useless girl, and scolded my mother as an unlucky woman with a rotten heart. She even ordered my father to beat my mother, saying, "Who told her not to bear a son for this family to rely on?" My mother just cried. She hugged my eldest sister and youngest sister tightly, ignoring my grandmother's fierce roars, like a lioness. Later, every time my grandmother scolded me, a child who couldn't squeeze into my mother's embrace, I would stand up and argue with her. "Aren't you a woman too? Aren't you afraid of retribution if you keep cursing?" That day, I was severely beaten. As soon as my father came home, without asking any questions, he swung the bamboo stick, as thick as 2 fingers, that my grandmother had given him. He beat me until the stick broke in half, sparing her life so she can grow up and be sold for money later. My grandmother's eyes were icy cold, her face as grim as a monster from a fairy tale. I collapsed to the ground, too much in pain to get up. I wanted to call my mother, but when I turned my head, I saw my youngest sister pulling away from my mother's hand, running to my grandmother and acting spoiled. Just a few words from her made my grandmother smile brightly. My eldest sister tried to run over and help me, but my mother held her hand tightly, stopping her. My mother's face turned pale, her eyes filled with panic. Don't go, she's rude," daring to talk back to grandmother. "You'll get beaten too if you go over there." That day, I lay in the yard from morning till night, from when the ground was scorching hot under the summer sun until it became cold and dew-soaked in the evening. Finally, my eldest sister carried me into the house. I could hear the sound of insects buzzing in my ears. The oil lamp had long been extinguished, and I was in too much pain to turn over. In a weak stupor, I called out, "Mom, I want you." There were footsteps going out and then returning. I smelled a familiar scent, struggled to crawl over, wanting to snuggle into my mother's arms and act spoiled, but a hand suddenly pressed down hard on me. "Stubborn thing, narrow-minded, you deserve to be beaten." That hand pressing down made me wince in pain. I burst into tears in the dark. "Mom, she scolded you first." The hand paused, and then after a moment, it pulled back. The familiar scent also faded away with the sound of footsteps. What if I was scolded? "If you were a boy, you might have been able to help your mother. Too bad you're just a girl." A gentle breeze blew, closing the rickety wooden door. My mother said my youngest sister was scared and needed to be comforted to sleep. Then, she hummed a song I didn't understand, but it was strangely gentle from beyond the wall. My eldest sister held me close, fumbling to wipe away my tears. "Don't blame Mom, she's had too much hardship, that's why she said that." I didn't answer. Amidst the gentle singing in the dark night, I, a child not yet 4 years old, suddenly realized, my mother probably didn't love me. When I was 5, my mother finally achieved what my grandmother had always wished for. She gave birth to a baby boy, her face beaming with pride as if she now had a place in the family. My father swelled with pride, his face beaming, giving out candy and inviting guests to his son's full-month celebration. They searched through an entire dictionary, finally choosing a name that meant literary star for the precious son, naming him Deep Van Tin. My eldest sister was named Deep Chiuda. My youngest sister and I were twins. I was named Deepda, and she was named Deep Ngu. From the moment Deep Van Tin was born, he became the golden boy of the entire family. My mother was invited to eat in the living room instead of the kitchen as before. My grandmother looked at my mother more gently, and even my father knew how to cut fabric to make new clothes for her. While that little boy was crying loudly, the adults were smiling brightly. Deep Ngu, sweet-mouthed, constantly hovered around them, occasionally praising her younger brother. As for my eldest sister and I, every day we cut pig feed, cooked pig slop, swept the house, did laundry, and cooked rice. After finishing our chores, we also had to wash piles of diapers that formed a mountain. Deep Van Tin was born, and they smiled, but my eldest sister and I gained more burdens. My sister was 5 years older than me. Last year, commune officials came to our house to advocate for the new policy that children must go to school. After many pleas, my grandmother reluctantly allowed my sister to attend school. School is great. In spring, my sister took me to pick shepherd's purse. Beads of sweat glistened on her smiling face. You must remember the words I teach you, it will be easier when you go to school later. But grandmother won't agree. I was gathering vegetables and putting them into a bamboo basket when I looked up and saw Deepngu running towards us, tears and snot running down her face. My eldest sister quickly embraced her. The March wind was gentle like my mother's hand once stroked my cheek, the scent of grass mingled with the scent of flowers diffused in the air. In just a few minutes, as I stooped to pick vegetables, I understood the reason for the sniffles. The child wanted candy, but my grandmother had given all the candy to Van Tin and cursed her as a damned little brat, doing nothing but demanding food. Before, the candy was clearly mine. I hate that rotten mosquito. She burst into tears again. It must be said that Deepngu was the most articulate of the three sisters, knowing how to act spoiled with grandmother and father, so she never had to lift a finger, and occasionally even received a few pennies for pocket money. But since Deep Van Tin arrived, sweet talk couldn't overcome favoritism. My eldest sister gently comforted her, repeating the story of Kong Rong yielding pears. But Deepngu didn't bother to listen, and even deliberately kicked over our basket of vegetables. She looked at my eldest sister and me, flashing a malicious smile. You filthy sluts, if I don't get to eat well, don't even dream of being happy. My eldest sister froze, standing silent for a moment before reacting, quickly grabbing the child who was about to run away. How can you curse your sister like that? Am I not your sister? Grandmother said, you two are just bastard trash. She screamed and struggled fiercely, her eyes as vicious as my grandmother's, trampling all the shepherd's purse my sister and I had just picked. Taking advantage of my eldest sister's carelessness, she bit my sister's wrist painfully and then took the opportunity to run away. Deepngu. My eldest sister clutched her bitten hand, running a few steps after her. Deepngu turned her head and made a face. Hiss hiss hiss, grandmother said to use the freshest shepherd's purse to cook eggs for that brat. If you two can't pick enough, just wait for father to beat you to death. She disappeared from sight. My eldest sister trembled, looking at the trampled basket of vegetables, tears streaming down her face. Duh, let's quickly find vegetables somewhere else. The Deep family was managed by my grandmother. But since Deep Van Tin was born, his words were like divine commands. Even if he couldn't even eat rice yet, my grandmother served him diligently as if he were 100 kings. Whatever the little boy liked, she would think of every way to get it, let alone just a little shepherd's purse to cook eggs. No need. I picked up the trampled vegetables, put them in the basket, and picked a few more intact ones. In March, every household ate shepherd's purse. In those scarce times, delicious vegetables had been almost entirely picked by others. This bunch of vegetables was what my eldest sister and I had to cross mountains and wade streams to find. It was almost dark now, and even if we searched, we wouldn't have enough time. Moreover, Deepngu did it intentionally. She was angry but didn't dare to vent her anger on Deep Van Tin, so she turned to harm my eldest sister and me to watch a fun show. But my eldest sister kept spinning around, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, she snatched the basket of vegetables. I'll say I dropped the vegetables. If father beats, let him beat me, you hide behind me later, don't say anything. It was Deepngu who trampled it. I took the basket of vegetables back and walked towards home, against the setting sun. She shouldn't have scolded my sister. If she gets pampered by me, I'll smash her pot too. When we arrived home, it was already dark. Deepngu was playing with Deep Van Tin on the porch. She kept praising her brother for being handsome and saying he would definitely be smart later, making my grandmother smile widely, unable to close her mouth. But as soon as she saw my eldest sister and me, that old face immediately darkened. Still know how to come home? Why didn't you just die on the street? My eldest sister bowed her head and whispered. I obediently placed the basket of vegetables in front of my grandmother. We were a bit slow picking vegetables, Grandma. Her face softened a little, and Deepngu quickly urged, her voice as sweet as candy, quickly take it to the kitchen, Mom is waiting to cook eggs for brother. I looked up at her, so she ate a piece of candy and now wants to reconcile? She avoided my gaze. What are you looking at? Don't you know I'm waiting for eggs? As she spoke, she pushed the basket of vegetables into my hand. I deliberately didn't hold it steady, and in the flickering darkness, crushed vegetable leaves and broken stems scattered everywhere. "You beast!" My grandmother immediately cursed loudly and called my father. "Can Sin, come out here. These two sluts have been wandering around all afternoon, and now they bring back a pile of rotten vegetables to poison your son." From inside the house, a figure moved, my father dragging a stick as thick as 2 fingers rushed straight towards me. My eldest sister fearfully pulled me back. I grabbed her hand, screamed, and pulled her to run. It was Deepngu who trampled it. "You're lying." Deepngu cried and accused me wrongly. I couldn't run as fast as my father. Hearing the whooshing sound behind me, I gritted my teeth and pushed my sister forward, taking the blow myself. Duh. My eldest sister was terrified. And I was beaten so hard that I saw stars, my whole body falling forward, a metallic taste of blood rising in my throat. My mother ran out from the kitchen. I thought she would catch me, but she only stopped for 2 seconds, then quickly ran to cover Deep Van Tin's eyes. "Deepda, quickly apologize to grandmother and your father." "That's right," sister brought back a pile of rotten vegetables and tried to blame me. Deepngu quickly interjected, trying to drown me out completely. My eldest sister held me and cried. "Dad, it's me." Deepngu was angry because grandmother gave all the candy to my brother, so she ruined the vegetables to prevent me from eating shepherd's purse eggs. I coughed violently in my sister's arms. My throat was bitter, and I didn't know if the candy tasted like that too. Everyone turned to look at me. Tears streamed down my face. It doesn't matter if the vegetables are trampled. But today, too many people went to pick vegetables, so later, even if we want to pick more, there won't be any left. "Little sister, you can scold me and eldest sister, but your brother is the treasure of the Deep family. He just wants to eat shepherd's purse eggs, and you still fight over it?" "No, it's not like that." Deepngu started to panic, but her body trembled, looking at me with eyes full of hatred. "Why isn't it?" I looked straight into her eyes, and under the dim night, I subtly gave a cold smile that only she understood. "If you hadn't come to find us and cause trouble, how would I know about the candy?" My eldest sister is a kind person, worn down by grandmother's malice, father's brutality, and even my mother's tears, to the point of only silently enduring. But I am not. Among the 3 sisters, I am the quietest, and also the one who remembers the longest. Whoever treats me well, I engrave in my heart. Whoever harms me, I will never forget. Deepngu was speechless, her eyes full of resentment towards me, but despite learning all the venomous words from my grandmother, she still lacked the necessary shrewdness. "Clever, huh? You dare to snatch things from your brother, I'll beat this conniving thing to death." My grandmother was truly enraged. She loved Deep Van Tin like the apple of her eye. How could she bear anyone fighting over her treasures things? She snatched the stick from my father's hand and beat Deepngu relentlessly, making the child scream for my mother. My mother looked on, unable to bear it, but in the end, she only dared to whisper, "You're the elder sister. Why are you fighting with your younger brother for candy? Hurry up and apologize to grandmother." Deepngu refused, crying and yelling that they were biased. Now that they had Deep Van Tin, they didn't care about her anymore, and even cursed a string of the same words my grandmother often used to scold people. This made my grandmother even more furious, and she gave her a few more blows. Finally, Deepngu resisted, turning and running out of the yard. I'd rather die on the street than come back. My mother tried to follow. My grandmother swung the stick and hit my mother's back. "You dare." I don't know if the blow was heavy or light, but my mother froze and dared not move anymore. After my grandmother carried Deep Van Tin into the house, my father also quietly followed. As soon as they left, my mother turned and softly scolded me. "Deepda, are you crazy? So what if the vegetables are trampled? Why did you talk so much? Are you satisfied now? You made your sister leave. Are you happy?" "Yes, very happy." I suppressed the pain and slowly smiled. Grandmother is right, a child who isn't loved is a madman. Even if I die, I must protect my sister, who is always gentle with me. You lunatic. My mother glared at me for 2 seconds then turned away in annoyance. I still have to cook eggs for Van Tin. Chiuda, hurry and find Deepangu. She didn't turn back, nor did she ask how I had been beaten. My eldest sister helped me into the room, poured me a bowl of warm water, and worriedly asked if I was in pain. I smiled faintly and shook my head. Don't do that again next time. My sister sighed. I looked at her intently. Sister, are you blaming me? She paused slightly, hesitated for a moment, then softly said, Dada, we are sisters, and as sisters, we must love our youngest sister, not argue, not fight. She always wanted to be a good sister, but unfortunately, sisterly affection cannot rely on just one side. Because good-natured people are always bullied. My eldest sister had gone to look for Deepangu. She was only 7 years old, and it was dark, but luckily Deepangu didn't dare to run far. I heard my sister talking outside the window. She must have found Deepangu crying in fear as soon as she stepped out. My mother said something very quietly. Amidst the whispers, suddenly, my grandmother's sharp, bitter scream tore through the night. Didn't she say she'd rather die than come back? Good then, saves me the trouble of feeding this conniving brat. Immediately, it became eerily silent outside, only the sound of Deepangu crying, no longer loud as before, but choked and broken as if she was trying to suppress her pain. Tonight, there was no moon. I struggled to sit up by the window, just as my grandmother pushed the door open and entered, surprisingly holding a boiled egg. Originally, this was for Van Tin to eat. You get a share thanks to him. You must know to protect him later. I know, Grandma. I took the egg with both hands, pretending not to see the fleeting pity in her eyes. She nodded contentedly and left. As soon as I placed the egg on the crooked table, my mother led Deepangu into the room. Dada, because of you, your sister got beaten, and as the elder sister, you must give her the egg to eat. Is it my fault? If Deepangu hadn't sowed the seeds, how could there be today's retribution? Yes, Mom. I smiled innocently. I originally intended to save the egg for my youngest brother. I just hope my sister doesn't bully my brother anymore in the future, so Mom won't be suppressed by grandmother. That's right. My mother chimed in, patting Deepangu's bottom twice. Eat, 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 all you know is eating. I don't know why I gave birth to such a greedy child like you. Deepangu cried sadly, but this time my mother didn't bother to comfort her, turning and leaving. Now she had a son to rely on, no longer a miserable woman who could only hug her daughters and cry silently in the night. Deepda. As soon as my mother disappeared, Deepangu immediately gritted her teeth and called my name. She blamed me for intentionally exposing her, and resented me for making her get beaten by my mother. I listened in silence. I peeled the egg bit by bit and slowly ate it all. How could I give her something I had suffered a beating to get? You think you're so great, huh? Deepangu was furious. So what if grandmother beat me? You got beaten by father too. So what? I smiled, slowly looking at her, each word carved into the air like a knife. Deepangu, even if I get beaten, I won't let you live in peace. Deepangu called me a madman. I didn't bother to respond. Before, she was doted on by grandmother, often playing tricks to harm my eldest sister and me. But now the one in power was the one with the precious thing. If she didn't know how to adapt to the times, hardship was inevitable. My back ached all night to the point where I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I couldn't even sit up. My eldest sister lifted my shirt to look. Her face immediately turned pale, and she rushed out of the room. Just 2 minutes later, my grandmother's scolding echoed. Why didn't you just beat her to death and get it over with? The scolding dragged on endlessly. My mother secretly entered the room like a thief, perhaps seeing the wounds on my back. She covered her mouth and sobbed uncontrollably. My daughter is truly a beast. How could she beat her to this extent? Mom, your tears sparkled like stars in the sky. And that was a star that belonged only to me. I tried to suppress the pain to make my mother smile, but her tears fell even more, pouring straight into my heart. softening me as if I was being squeezed. I had to say, "Mom, how about you take me to the doctor?" She loved me so much. It turned out I had misunderstood before. It turned out my mother still loved me. But she became flustered, her tears also stopped, and she spoke evasively about Van Tin's expensive food, and how difficult it was to pay for my eldest sister's schooling. I looked at her, smiling like an innocent child. "Mom, can you use the medicine you used to put on my brother when he fell, to put on me too? Mom, I beg you, please, please also love this middle daughter a little. Just for today, if you love me once, I will forget all those gloomy days." "No." She immediately refused. But when she met my gaze, her face suddenly flushed. "That, Mom just saw." "Saw what?" She couldn't say. I still looked at her silently. Finally, she angrily shouted, "What kind of look is that? Is it not enough that I gave birth to you and raised you? So what does that mean? You don't want to put medicine on me?" I slowly lowered my head, and from above, her voice was full of deep affection but also full of resentment. "Damn it, I must have owed you in a previous life to give birth to such a disaster like you in this life. You're not as gentle and simple as your eldest sister, nor as clever and sweet as your youngest sister. You can't even say a few words. Deepta, I think you're the most superfluous person in this family." She was furious and indignant, yelling until her throat was hoarse, as if she was using curses to vent all the resentment that had accumulated over many years. But her suffering was never because of me. I had always known she didn't like me, so I rarely actively sought her affection. It was she herself, with glistening, tear-filled eyes, who made me believe in something called warmth again. "If you're not going to give, then don't blame me. Because you were the one who actively came forward, crying, all day long, just crying." Grandmother also sent Deep and Good to work. "It's a miracle you lazy things don't starve to death all day long." She stood up and left, gritting her teeth as if scolding an enemy. I lay on the bed, shaking uncontrollably from the pain, and she still didn't turn to look once. The one who ran in was my eldest sister, hugging me and crying like rain. "Don't be afraid, when grandmother isn't looking, I'll secretly get medicine to put on you." I had no strength to answer. I just slightly curled my lips, giving a self-mocking smile. No wonder my mother didn't love me. If I were an obedient child, would probably be profusely thanking her now, saying I wasn't in pain, didn't need a doctor, didn't need medicine. I would perform a play of deep mother-daughter love with her and try my best to understand her suffering, instead of tearing open the veil that hid the injustice. But Mom, I really hurt. I was in a daze for a long time. In my dream, there were cries and curses. It seemed someone was being beaten until their skin peeled off, still begging for me. It was as if countless bitter things were stuffed into my mouth. When I woke up, it was already summer. After taking just a few steps, I was out of breath and too weak to work with my eldest sister. My grandmother saw this and cursed all day with a scowling face. As for my father, he was never moved by those vulgar words. Many times I wondered if he was deaf. My mother was indifferent. Deepngu was now tanned from the sun, her eyes filled with resentment. I noticed she had learned how to pick pig feed, cook pig slop, and clean without blinking, even when cleaning Van Tin's messy feces, and at meal times, she would move to sit by the stove. My eldest sister sadly said that my grandmother often scolded Deepngu. Unfortunately, Deepngu never appreciated my sister's kindness. Once, I even saw her intentionally pinch Van Tin to make him cry. Then, when my grandmother ran over, she would say that my eldest sister hadn't taken careful care of him, causing my sister to be unjustly beaten and scolded. It was also that time that I saw my sister's back covered in injuries, as if she had been whipped with thorny branches all over her back, but she didn't say a word. That night, Deepngu secretly crept into my bed. "Deepta, I beg you, please tell me what happened." Her breath wafted into my ear, soft like a slithering snake. "Okay, I beg you." I turned to face her, a mocking smile sparkling in her eyes. "You two really have sisterly affection, don't you? Too bad you're the one who caused eldest sister to get beaten." My heart ached. And then what? Then she suddenly burst into laughter, jumping off the bed. Then I won't say any more, you guess. She was gleeful, her every step as she ran away light, as if just provoking me had satisfied her long-held cruel joke. So boring. I considered whether any part of her words was true, intending to ask my eldest sister again. But my sister now left early and returned late, much busier than before, and even more strictly made me learn to read and count. When I was a little better, she secretly took me to her classmate's house. Her friend lived in the neighboring village, and their house had many old books. My sister said that the Chu family was a scholarly lineage who had been sent to the countryside to work due to special circumstances. My sister told me to be obedient, quick, and diligent in helping with housework so that I could borrow books later. I remembered it well. The Chu family only had Chu Tu Quan and his parents. After my eldest sister found an excuse to take Chu Tu Quan outside, I stayed behind and, thanks to my habit of observing from a young age, as soon as Aunt Jung raised her hand, I knew what she wanted. If Uncle Chu slightly furrowed his brow, I guessed the tea wasn't to his liking. In less than half a day, I had endeared myself to them. When my eldest sister returned, I was sitting neatly at the study table with Uncle Chu, learning characters. Dada is so well behaved. Aunt Jung smiled, slipping a few candies into my sister's hand. If the child likes it, let her come play anytime. My sister quickly thanked her repeatedly. That was the first time in my life I had ever eaten candy. The rich, milky scent melted in my mouth, sweet to the point where my heart felt like it would melt. It was much sweeter than the bitter taste in my throat that day. From that day on, every time we went out, my eldest sister would take me to the Chu family's house, and in the evening, she would bring a full bundle of vegetables to pick me up. I also always remembered my sister's instructions, working diligently, being obedient and polite. Autumn arrived in a flash, and I discovered something unusual about my eldest sister. School had started after autumn, but she no longer carried her school bag to school. My eldest sister still took me to the Chu family's house. I secretly gestured to Aunt Jung. Aunt Lin smiled and called my sister, Chiuda, why aren't you going to school? My sister bit her lip, her eyes glancing towards me. I immediately understood, and quickly went inside. Aunt Jung also tactfully led my sister out to the gate. As soon as they left the door, I secretly hid behind the gate. My eldest sister's sad voice reached my ears. Earlier this year, Da was very sick, and the family even planned to cut down cedar wood for her coffin. I said I would drop out of school to save money to cure Da. So when the new school year started, grandmother reminded me of that vow, saying that if I broke my promise, I would be struck by lightning. This. Aunt Jung choked. My eyes reddened, and I ran outside. Sister, you're so foolish, such a difficult opportunity to go to school and you gave it up. Anyway, I'm just a lowly person, no one would mourn if I died. I'm willing. My sister didn't blame me at all, and even smiled gently. Don't worry, I have hands and feet, I can still live without going to school. Good child. Aunt Jung sighed softly. My sister saw that I already knew and told me the whole story. It turned out that day, she had secretly taken medicine to rub on me. My back ached all night to the point where I couldn't sleep. The next morning, I couldn't even sit up. My eldest sister lifted my shirt to look, her face immediately turned pale, and she rushed out of the room. Just 2 minutes later, my grandmother's scolding echoed. Why didn't you just beat her to death and get it over with? The scolding dragged on endlessly. My mother secretly entered the room like a thief, perhaps seeing the wounds on my back. She covered her mouth and sobbed uncontrollably. My daughter is truly a beast, how could she beat her to this extent? Mom, your tears sparkled like stars in the sky. And that was a star that belonged only to me. I tried to suppress the pain to make my mother smile, but her tears fell even more, pouring straight into my heart, softening me as if I was being squeezed. I had to say, Mom, how about you take me to the doctor? She loved me so much, it turned out I had misunderstood before, it turned out my mother still loved me. But she became flustered, her tears also stopped, and she spoke evasively about Van Tin's expensive food, and how difficult it was to pay for my eldest sister's schooling. I looked at her, smiling like an innocent child. "Mom, can you use the medicine you used to put on my brother when he fell, to put on me too? Mom, I beg you, please also love this middle daughter a little. Just for today, if you love me once, I will forget all those gloomy days." "No." She immediately refused. But when she met my gaze, her face suddenly flushed. "That, Mom just saw." "Saw what?" She couldn't say. I still looked at her silently. Finally, she angrily shouted, "What kind of look is that? Is it not enough that I gave birth to you and raised you? So what does that mean? You don't want to put medicine on me?" I slowly lowered my head, and from above, her voice was full of deep affection but also full of resentment. "Damn it, I must have owed you in a previous life to give birth to such a disaster like you in this life. You're not as gentle and simple as your eldest sister, nor as clever and sweet as your youngest sister. You can't even say a few words. Deepta, I think you're the most superfluous person in this family." She was furious and indignant, yelling until her throat was hoarse, as if she was using curses to vent all the resentment that had accumulated over many years. But her suffering was never because of me. I had always known she didn't like me, so I rarely actively sought her affection. It was she herself, with glistening, tear-filled eyes, who made me believe in something called warmth again. "If you're not going to give, then don't blame me. Because you were the one who actively came forward, crying, all day long, just crying. Grandmother also sent Deep and Good to work. It's a miracle you lazy things don't starve to death all day long." She stood up and left, gritting her teeth as if scolding an enemy. I lay on the bed, shaking uncontrollably from the pain, and she still didn't turn to look once. The one who ran in was my eldest sister, hugging me and crying like rain. "Don't be afraid, when grandmother isn't looking, I'll secretly get medicine to put on you." I had no strength to answer. I just slightly curled my lips, giving a self-mocking smile. No wonder my mother didn't love me. If I were an obedient child, would probably be profusely thanking her now, saying I wasn't in pain, didn't need a doctor, didn't need medicine. I would perform a play of deep mother-daughter love with her and try my best to understand her suffering, instead of tearing open the veil that hid the injustice. But Mom, I really hurt. I was in a daze for a long time. In my dream, there were cries and curses. It seemed someone was being beaten until their skin peeled off, still begging for me. It was as if countless bitter things were stuffed into my mouth. When I woke up, it was already summer. After taking just a few steps, I was out of breath and too weak to work with my eldest sister. My grandmother saw this and cursed all day with a scowling face. As for my father, he was never moved by those vulgar words. Many times I wondered if he was deaf. My mother was indifferent. Deepngu was now tan from the sun, her eyes filled with resentment. I noticed she had learned how to pick pig feed, cook pig slop, and clean without blinking, even when cleaning Van Tin's messy feces, and at meal times, she would move to sit by the stove. My eldest sister sadly said that my grandmother often scolded Deepngu. Unfortunately, Deepngu never appreciated my sister's kindness. Once, I even saw her intentionally pinch Van Tin to make him cry. Then, when my grandmother ran over, she would say that my eldest sister hadn't taken careful care of him, causing my sister to be unjustly beaten and scolded. It was also that time that I saw my sister's back covered in injuries, as if she had been whipped with thorny branches all over her back, but she didn't say a word. That night, Deepngu secretly crept into my bed. "Deepta, I beg you, please tell me what happened." Her breath wafted into my ear, soft like a slithering snake. "Okay, I beg you." I turned to face her, a mocking smile sparkling in her eyes. "You two really have sisterly affection, don't you? Too bad you're the one who caused eldest sister to get beaten." My heart ached. And then what? Then she suddenly burst into laughter, jumping off the bed. "Then I won't say any more, you guess." She was gleeful, her every step as she ran away light, as if just provoking me had satisfied her long-held cruel joke. So boring. I considered whether any part of her words was true, intending to ask my eldest sister again. But my sister now left early and returned late, much busier than before, and even more strictly made me learn to read and count. When I was a little better, she secretly took me to her classmate's house. Her friend lived in the neighboring village, and their house had many old books. My sister said that the Chu family was a scholarly lineage who had been sent to the countryside to work due to special circumstances. My sister told me to be obedient, quick, and diligent in helping with housework so that I could borrow books later. I remembered it well. The Chu family only had Chu Tu Quan and his parents. After my eldest sister found an excuse to take Chu Tu Quan outside, I stayed behind and, thanks to my habit of observing from a young age, as soon as Aunt Jung raised her hand, I knew what she wanted. If Uncle Chu slightly furrowed his brow, I guessed the tea wasn't to his liking. In less than half a day, I had endeared myself to them. When my eldest sister returned, I was sitting neatly at the study table with Uncle Chu, learning characters. Dada is so well behaved. Aunt Jung smiled, slipping a few candies into my sister's hand. If the child likes it, let her come play anytime. My sister quickly thanked her repeatedly. That was the first time in my life I had ever eaten candy. The rich, milky scent melted in my mouth, sweet to the point where my heart felt like it would melt. It was much sweeter than the bitter taste in my throat that day. From that day on, every time we went out, my eldest sister would take me to the Chu family's house, and in the evening, she would bring a full bundle of vegetables to pick me up. I also always remembered my sister's instructions, working diligently, being obedient and polite. Autumn arrived in a flash, and I discovered something unusual about my eldest sister. School had started after autumn, but she no longer carried her school bag to school. My eldest sister still took me to the Chu family's house. I secretly gestured to Aunt Jung. Aunt Lin smiled and called my sister, Chiuda, why aren't you going to school? My sister bit her lip, her eyes glancing towards me. I immediately understood, and quickly went inside. Aunt Jung also tactfully led my sister out to the gate. As soon as they left the door, I secretly hid behind the gate. My eldest sister's sad voice reached my ears. Earlier this year, Da was very sick, and the family even planned to cut down cedar wood for her coffin. I said I would drop out of school to save money to cure Da. So when the new school year started, grandmother reminded me of that vow, saying that if I broke my promise, I would be struck by lightning. This. Aunt Jung choked. My eyes reddened, and I ran outside. Sister, you're so foolish, such a difficult opportunity to go to school and you gave it up. Anyway, I'm just a lowly person, no one would mourn if I died. I'm willing. My sister didn't blame me at all, and even smiled gently. Don't worry, I have hands and feet, I can still live without going to school. Good child. Aunt Jung sighed softly. My sister saw that I already knew and told me the whole story. It turned out that day, she had secretly taken medicine to rub on me. But because she was young and inexperienced, the smell of the medicated wine was quickly discovered by my grandmother. After that came my father's beating, and my mother's crying and cursing. They all regretted the expensive bottle of medicated wine that was originally reserved for Deep Van Tin. No one really cared whether I lived or died. Without medicine, I had such a high fever that I had convulsions. My sister, with her body covered in injuries, cried and knelt, finally having to sacrifice her schooling to persuade them to invite a quack doctor. 2 broken vertebrae. She smiled bitterly. That quack doctor didn't dare to treat me, but grandmother said my life and death had nothing to do with him. I begged mother to take me to the hospital, but mother said it was all fate. I don't know what my sister was thinking, but her eyes were brimming with tears. Don't cry, it's not your fault. Besides, you saved Dada already. Aunt Jung gently put her arm around my sister's shoulder. At first, my sister stiffened, then leaned on her shoulder and silently sobbed. The September sun was gentle and radiant. I bit my lip hard, letting tears drip onto the ground. No one in the Deep family wanted my eldest sister to go to school. So I was determined to earn money so my sister could go to school. In those days, everyone had to dig for food from the ground to eat. 3 dong for tuition was already a burden for adults, let alone a 7-year-old child like me. I observed for a few days and finally noticed the wild chrysanthemums blooming profusely on the mountainside in autumn. In Uncle Chu's medicine book, it was written that wild chrysanthemums help clear heat, brighten eyes, and can be dried to make medicine and tea. I told the two of them about it. Uncle Chu agreed with my idea and told me to pick the flowers and bring them to his house to dry, and he would find a way to help sell them. Aunt Dung gave me 2 dong, but I quickly refused. If I really need it later, I'll bother you then. Everyone was suffering, let alone the two of them who had moved from the city and couldn't do heavy labor. Their house only had a pile of precious books, and they still had to send Chu Tu Quan to school. And the book taught that to solve a problem, one must start from the root. What spirit! Uncle Chu exclaimed encouragingly. So in the morning, I learned characters with Uncle Chu. In the afternoon, I climbed the mountain to pick chrysanthemums, and in the late afternoon, I brought the flowers to dry at the Chu family's house. In the evening, I returned home with my eldest sister. My sister pitied my hard work and told me not to worry about her. But what I had decided, I had to accomplish. Everyone in the village was busy farming, everyone hoped to dig gold from the earth, but the golden chrysanthemums blooming brightly all over the mountains were unwanted by anyone. So I found a bargain. At the end of the month, Uncle Chu brought the dried chrysanthemums to the district to sell and returned. He apologetically gave me 80 cents. I only managed to sell this much. He felt guilty for not being able to do more. But I held the money, overjoyed. This was the first money I had earned with my own hands. If only I tried harder, picked more flowers, I would surely have enough money for my eldest sister's tuition. Uncle, Aunt, thank you both very much. I carefully put the money away and respectfully knelt before them. You two taught me to read and write, you are my first teachers, and you helped me with my sister's situation. Deepta would like to kowtow to express my gratitude. I don't know how to repay this kindness, I can only bow my head to show my deep gratitude. Oh dear. Aunt Dung quickly helped me up, and Uncle Chu smiled at me for a moment, then unexpectedly took a wooden box made of rosewood from the bookshelf and gave it to me. I saw you kept touching it before, so today I'm giving it to you. Is this very valuable? I was fascinated by strategy books, and in this box was a handwritten copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War passed down from Uncle Chu's father. A treasured sword to a hero. He smiled and placed the box in my hand. Uncle, Aunt, and Tu Quan don't like reading these kinds of books, so it would be a waste to leave it there. But giving it to you is like finding a kindred spirit for a precious jade, truly worthy. He once told me the story of high mountains and flowing water. But I was just a 7-year-old child. Was I worthy of such expectations? Go on. Uncle Chu still smiled. Ambition doesn't wait for age. Without ambition, even 100 years is just a wasted life. Age is just a number. I carefully put away that precious book, hiding it in the most secluded place in the house, only daring to secretly read it on quiet late nights under the faint moonlight. As late autumn approached, wild chrysanthemums also began to thin out. I intended to spend more time studying at the Chu family's house to take advantage of picking more flowers, but I met with strong opposition from Uncle Chu. If you don't know how to read, even if ginseng is laid out right in front of you, you'll only see it as wild radishes. My eldest sister cried profusely. If you don't go to Uncle Chu's house to study anymore, I don't need that money for anything. Housework never ended. Whenever I studied or picked flowers, my sister carried the burden of both our shares alone, so tired that she became as thin as a dry branch. I absolutely could not let my sister down. My grandmother didn't allow me to study, but I had the Chu family to teach me. As for my sister, she only had me. I gritted my teeth and endured, still persistently studying in the morning and picking flowers in the afternoon. On weekends, Chu Tu Quan would bring books to my sister, explaining the knowledge learned during the week and telling stories about the fun things in class. The two children, 11 and 12 years old, sat head to head. Their clear laughter echoed throughout the hill. Thanks to knowing how to read, I borrowed Uncle Chu's medicine books and took them to the mountains to research each type of plant. Indeed, I had recognized a few valuable medicinal herbs. When the chrysanthemums had withered, I immediately switched to picking herbs, busy until the entire mountainous area was covered in thick snow before I stopped. The last batch of herbs was also sold out. Aunt Jung, covered in snow, found my sister and me when we were in the mountains picking firewood. My grandmother said the house was too cold and made my sister and me find dry branches to light a fire to warm deep Van Tin. That old hag really has no conscience. Auntie cursed as she pulled a cloth-wrapped money bag from the basket on her back. She didn't say how much money it was in total. Your uncle said to let you calculate it yourself to see if your math has improved. In total, I had sold 7 batches of chrysanthemums and herbs. The money earned from each batch was not even, some odd, some even, not easy to calculate. My sister picked up 2 branches to calculate on the snow, but I had been taught multiplication, division, and decimals by Uncle Chu, so I quickly calculated the total to be 5 dong, 3 hao, and 8 su. Is that so? My sister's eyes widened in surprise. I was also overjoyed inside but still tried to remain calm, looking up at Aunt Jung. Auntie smiled, giving a thumbs up in praise. Your uncle was right, our Dada is intelligent and kind-hearted. Auntie's praise truly made me feel as if the entire white snowy sky that day had turned into sweet sugar granules. I quietly hid 1 dong in the chrysanthemum bag I carried with me before giving the rest to Aunt Jung. Every time I picked a large and beautiful flower, I kept it, dried it, and accumulated it little by little. Now I've wrapped it into a small gift for Uncle and Aunt. When you read, you can brew a pot of chrysanthemum tea to help brighten your eyes. Right now, I'm still young, I can only do small things like this. Aunt Jung's eyes welled up, and she embraced me tightly. This child, with such a delicate and kind heart, how could they bear to beat and scold you? Her embrace was warm and gently fragrant, like the hug I had imagined in my dreams, the embrace of a true mother. In the basket, there were also scissors, needles, and thread. Aunt Jung carefully put away the chrysanthemum bag and asked me what I was carrying these things for. I pulled Auntie and my sister behind a bush and whispered for a while. When the 2 of them started cutting and sewing, I also secretly slipped out. Far away, the mountain wind swept thick snow falling sparsely from the branches. A thin figure ran past the small path. I smirked mockingly. Wolves and jackals are lurking everywhere. How could I let my guard down? The snow weighed down the bent branches, the sky and earth stained a gray color. My sister and I struggled to drag the bundle of firewood home. On the snow, there were only a few faint footprints. Perhaps because there was hope for tuition fees, my sister was much brighter today. Her radiant smile seemed to illuminate the entire gloomy winter day. Dada, you're also old enough to go to school now. Let's try to save up more for you to start school next autumn. My sister said that while having Uncle Chu teach was good, children should still go to school to learn properly. She started thinking about what to do to earn money in the spring, and even imagined the scene of us 2 sisters carrying school bags to class together. I just smiled and listened. That would never happen. If my sister went to school, the family would be short of 1 laborer. My grandmother would surely exploit me to the bone. How could she let me go to school? The north wind howled, kitchen smoke faintly rose from the rooftops. The ragged cotton jacket was as good as nothing. My sister and I shivered as we put the bundle of firewood down in the woodshed, when my grandmother stepped out of the main room. It's cold, isn't it? She gave a distorted smile. She tried to pretend to be friendly, but her stiff, emotionless face only made people shudder. My eldest sister fearfully hid behind me, shaking her head continuously. Listen to me, now. She still wore a fake smile, her eyes glinting with cunning. How can it not be cold with such heavy snow? Hurry up and give me the money, then go light the fire to warm up. So should I thank her? Clearly, she could just snatch it but still wanted to give us a little favor first. No money. I quietly pulled my sister's hand, who was about to tell the truth. As soon as I finished speaking, Deep Ngu, who was eavesdropping in the main room, jumped out. You're lying, I saw Aunt Jung give you money. That's right, I also saw her peeking, but I just silently shed tears without saying a word. My grandmother's face contorted, saliva spewing out with her curses along with the snow. This little brat is already trying to hide private money. What kind of mother gave birth to such a beast like you? The person called by name, my mother, stood by the kitchen door, her face dark, her expression unclear. My grandmother finally showed her true colors. Kneel down, kneel in the snow for me, kneel until you're willing to speak. In the bitter winter, the cold wind cut through skin and flesh. My body had long been numb, feeling no warmth at all. Looking at the snow for too long, all I saw was blinding white light that made my eyes ache and tear up. I'll talk, I'll talk. My eldest sister held me in her arms, crying and pulling out the money she had hidden on her person. My grandmother hadn't even had a chance to speak when Deep Ngo screamed, "How can there be only one dong? Go search her then." Hearing my grandmother agree, Deep Ngo immediately lunged forward and rummaged through my eldest sister's clothes. I bit her hand, and she immediately turned back and tattled. "Deep Ngo won't let me search, they definitely have more money on them." "Then beat them," my grandmother said coldly, "beat them until they hand over the money." My father immediately grabbed the bamboo stick and ran over. Ever since he almost beat me to death, he switched to using a bamboo stick. It was something that could cause heart-wrenching pain without leaving serious injuries. Now he was like a loyal dog, ready to charge and beat me and my eldest sister at a command. My sister hugged me tightly, her face bleeding from the lashes. I watched for my chance, waited for half a minute, then burst into loud sobs. "I'll give you the money, I'll give it to you. Don't hit my sister anymore, you hussy," my grandmother cursed. As soon as I handed over 38 cents, she told Deep Ngo to continue searching. It almost pulled out all the tattered cotton from our padded jackets before it stopped. Its face was still angry. "Why is there only this much money? It's all stuff that doesn't sell for much." I sobbed. The money was still there, but it was sewn tightly into the thick fabric lining of my and my sister's clothes. I bet Deep Ngo didn't know how much I had earned, but the Deep family didn't know the true value of those herbs. My eldest sister said nothing, just hugged me tightly and cried. "Humph, that hussy Jungla probably dared to hide private money. Tomorrow, I'll tear up her quilt." My grandmother hugged the money and went back inside, and my father returned to smoking his pipe. Deep Ngo was unwilling, circling around me, seemingly still wanting to get more money. I thought quickly, suddenly jumped up, pushed it to the ground, and sat on its stomach, delivering a few slaps. "Deep Da," it screamed. I said nothing, just bowed my head and kept hitting. My parents heard the shouting from the kitchen and ran out. I immediately broke free and ran outside. My mother stood behind me, yelling loudly, "You cursed child, you won't die peacefully." I pretended not to hear, just turned my head and gave my sister a glance, then ran straight to the Chu family's house. Underscore 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 underscore. A cold winter and a glimmer of hope. When I returned in the dark, my eldest sister was quietly crouching by the wall waiting for me. "How was it?" "Don't worry, I used the dim snow light, pulled out the Art of War hidden at the bottom of the old wooden cabinet, caressed the book cover lovingly, and then carefully put it away. The book says, one does not bring harm upon oneself. If one is harmed, it is truly so. Truth and falsehood, intertwined, form a strategy." When picking wild chrysanthemums, I discovered Deep Ngo secretly following me. It knew, which meant the whole family would know, and I absolutely had to earn money. So I thought for a long time, and finally devised a self-inflicted injury strategy. As for hitting it, that was an impulsive act, one to take the opportunity to escape and inform Aunt Dung, and two, to vent my anger. Uncle Chu once taught that it was called feigning an attack on the east while actually attacking the west. Indeed, reading many books made one different from ordinary people. My grandmother dragged Deep Ngo to the Chu family's house to cause trouble, but the aunts and grandmas from the neighboring village were no pushovers. When she came to curse, she was scolded by the crowd until she was speechless, each person spitting on her until she was ashamed and red-faced. Aunt Jung was even more unyielding. Without me to find an outlet, the pile of chrysanthemums that girl picked would rot and no one would buy them. For those few coins, I had to run around, and even had to pay out of my own pocket. Now you suspect me of cheating children out of money, so pay the transportation fees first. It's only $1.38 in total. My grandmother heard the demand for transportation fees and immediately ran away, faster than a ghost. When she got home, she started cursing wildly, from scolding my mother for not knowing how to give birth, to scolding my 3 sisters for being lazy, saying that sooner or later we would have to be sold for a bit of money. Mother hugged Deep Van Tin and said nothing. My eldest sister shielded me and Deep Ngo, bowing her head and letting my grandmother vent her anger. Underscore 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 underscore. The struggle and the scheme. Waiting for grandmother to finish scolding and go into her room, Deep Ngo pushed my eldest sister hard. Who needs you to meddle in my business? Get lost, don't touch me. My sister froze. Without a word, I raised my hand and slapped it. It had never done heavy labor, its strength was not as good as mine, it could only angrily clutch its cheek and scream. Deepta, you hit me again. I delivered 2 more blows. Deepta, I'll fight you to the death. It rushed forward, wanting to fight me. I kicked it, making it fall to the ground, then straddled its stomach and rained blows on it. It cried miserably without sound, completely unable to resist. Mom, it cried and called for help. But my mother only hugged Deep Van Tin and stood far away, hurriedly calling my eldest sister to intervene, afraid I would go crazy and accidentally hit her beloved son. I hit it until its face was swollen before stopping. I stared into its eyes, coldly saying, if you dare to scold sister again, each time you scold, I will hit you once more. It trembled, unconsciously avoiding my gaze. I let my sister pull me away. It didn't matter if it feared me or hated me. I just needed it to understand one thing: if it dared to bully my sister, I would skin it alive. After the heavy snow, the new year was approaching. My eldest sister and I went up the mountain every day to collect firewood. When no one was paying attention, I secretly took out the art of war to study, and whenever I didn't understand something, I would run to the Chu family's house to ask. One day, Aunt Jung stopped me. She pretended to be angry and lightly tapped my forehead. Why do you put all your heart into this? Now you've even learned the trick of hiding money and giving it back. I just chuckled. It seems Auntie has discovered the money in the chrysanthemum bag I gave her. This child is so obedient it makes one feel sorry for her. Auntie slipped a small cloth bundle into my hand, saying, one good turn deserves another, and personally killed a chicken to cook rice for me and my sister to stay and eat. That day, Uncle Chu drank a bit too much, and I learned that years ago, someone had targeted his position and found a way to send his whole family to the countryside for reform, and they still hadn't been able to return to the city. Why are you telling that to children? Aunt Jung playfully scolded. Uncle Chu shook his head and smiled, though young, she is my confidante. It's true. Aunt Jung laughed along. I don't quite understand, so I'll pour you more wine. Turning my head, I saw my sister and Chu Tu Quan standing and talking under the eaves. The winter wind blew, carrying their clear laughter throughout the hill. The mountains and forests were desolate, but the winter sun was unusually warm. In the blink of an eye, it was New Year's Eve, and the whole family was busy preparing the New Year's Eve dinner. My sister and I quickly took out the money from the lining of our shoes and carefully put it away, waiting for the enrollment day to pay tuition fees. Opening the small cloth bundle from Aunt Jung, inside was a delicate little silver longevity lock. Keep it. Underscore 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 underscore. The path to education and sacrifice. When you grow up, you must repay them. As soon as my sister finished putting away the silver lock, Deepangu rushed into the room. Chiuda, are you deaf? Grandma's calling you to help in the kitchen. It almost bit its tongue, caught my eye, its face changed color several times, then it turned and ran away. Since those relentless beatings, it was like a cat seeing a mouse. It avoided me, not daring to cause trouble anymore. I was too lazy to bother. The new year was bustling. Although we were too poor to eat enough, many families still lit firecrackers. Children ran from one end of the village to the other, roasting sweet potatoes, burning cow dung, chasing chickens, herding dogs. Laughter echoed throughout the sky. I rarely went out, preferring to sit quietly, occasionally writing a few words on the ground. My grandmother cursed me for showing off, and my mother told me I was silent like a ghost all day, forcing me to go out and play with the other children. I said I only wanted to study. She immediately changed her tune, saying the family could only save enough money for Van Tin to go to school. I must be sensible, I must understand for the adults. See? She spoke nicely, but when it came to benefits, I was the one who didn't understand. After the new year, work piled up. Even if Deepangu pretended to be innocent, my grandmother would still send it out to work. As for me and my sister, there was no need to mention it, we worked constantly. On enrollment day, my sister quietly went to register. She studied, I took on all the work for both of us. I deliberately created the impression that my sister was still at home so that the Deep family wouldn't suspect anything and stop her. But after the new year, my mother told my sister that she was old enough to work in the fields. Sister isn't home, is she? I begged my mother, asking her not to reveal this, not to cut off my sister's path to education. But my mother cursed me for being ungrateful, and said I indeed hid money and cheated the family. The curses attracted my grandmother and my father, bringing with them a beating. That day, the sky was blood red. I lay sprawled in the yard, vaguely hearing curses and sobs growing closer. It wasn't until my sister hugged me tightly that I clearly saw her swollen, red eyes, bruised face, and disheveled hair from being pulled. I'm not going to school anymore, don't hit my sister. Duh, I won't go to school anymore. She cried until her throat was hoarse. Not far away was my grandmother's venomous voice. You shameless girl, you took money to give to boys and let them sleep for free. And you dare to go to school? I'll report you to the police for being promiscuous with boys. My sister trembled violently. Hot tears fell on my face, drop by drop. Don't cry. I lay in my sister's arms, coughing until the wound on my back throbbed. Underscore 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 underscore. The struggle and the scheme continued. Go find the village chief. Go find the commune officials. But there was no need to go, they had already arrived. However, my grandmother began to cause a scene. Don't pigs need to be fed, don't rice need to be planted? Are any of you here willing to help with the work? If everyone wants her to go to school, then you all pay money to come to my house and work. She was unreasonable, and the officials, whether gentle or firm, were ineffective, saying that not letting a child go to school was against the law, but she wasn't afraid. If you arrest me today, tomorrow I'll hang myself in front of your house. Everyone in the village knew my grandmother was difficult to provoke. Finally, after a few whispered words, everyone quietly retreated. My grandmother triumphantly scolded me and my sister until her mouth was dry before going inside to drink water. My mother shook her head as she passed by, coldly uttering a sentence, truly disobedient. Van Tin, my good child, don't follow your second sister's example later. She hugged Deep Van Tin and kissed him repeatedly, as if she didn't see me covered in blood from the beating, nor my sister sitting motionless on the ground, her face as pale as a corpse. In her eyes, there was only her precious youngest child. I looked at the scene and suddenly laughed. You love Van Tin very much, don't you? Then I will use Van Tin to pave my way. Deep Van Tin, at 3 years old, was raised by my grandmother, so his personality was exactly like hers, always glancing sideways at others. He never called me sister. As soon as he opened his mouth, it was, you hussy. My grandmother even clapped her hands and laughed, praising, such good cursing. Truly a man's spirit. I continued to secretly wait for an opportunity. Now my sister worked in the fields. The chores of washing, cooking, and picking pig greens all fell on me and Deepangu. My mother pretended to be fair, telling me and it to choose tasks, but when I said I wanted to stay home, Deepangu became stubborn and refused. My mother immediately frowned. You're the older sister, you have to yield to your younger sibling, don't you? Humph, that was her idea of fairness. She sided with Deepangu, and I didn't argue anymore. But Deepangu only lasted a few meals, almost setting the kitchen on fire when cooking, and washing a basin of clothes that weren't even dry by noon. My grandmother scolded it all day. Before long, Deepangu couldn't stand it anymore, crying and demanding to switch tasks. My mother immediately changed her tone. Anyway, Deepta, you don't like the sun and hard work. Let her do the light work in the house then. She said it so naturally, and I listened, wanting to laugh coldly. Mom, can you be even more biased? Since I'm the older sister, I naturally have to give up the easy work for my younger sibling. I looked at Deepangu with pity. Outdoor work is very hard. You, the third child, just stay at home, don't keep switching back and forth and make grandma angry. Even pigs reject the food it cooks. My grandmother cursed Deepangu, calling it a straw bag between two shoulders, making it cry loudly. I won't switch anymore. If I switch, I'll tell Dad to hit you. Alright, then don't. I reluctantly agreed. Seeing my mother turn to comfort Deepangu, my eyes immediately turned cold. When it came to matters of benefit, my mother would not spoil Deepangu. But she was very good at using trivial things to win its favor. Fairness? I deliberately yielded, forcing the child who was not good at housework to give up on its own so that I could stay. Only when I was at home could I approach Deep Van Tin. This move is called retreating 1 step to advance 3 steps. The house was messy with chores, such as cooking, sweeping, chopping firewood, boiling water, washing clothes, and I also had to keep an eye on my grandmother at all times, not to mention looking after Deep Van Tin. The day was so busy that my feet felt like they were on fire. I deliberately complained to Deepangu, who secretly gloated, but outwardly pretended to sympathize. Who told you, Deepta, that you're good at everything? Grandma likes your cooking. I made it believe me. Once I confirmed that Deepangu had definitively given up, I began to approach Deep Van Tin. At first, it would grimace and glare at me, its mouth full of foul language.